Nothing says summer to me more than the smell of a beautiful rose. And now we are in the middle of August. It's very windy, we've got grey skies and it's starting to rain. But even so, I am going to take some rose cuttings today to increase my stock of roses. This one is coming into the house with me. I know that taking cuttings from roses works very well when they're done in a container, and the best way to do that is to use fairly straight growth from this year, so this year's new growth. At this time of year, late summer, it is ideal. So I'm going to take off a piece. I've taken it off just below a leaf, and I can unravel it. I'm going to use a piece about 10 inches long, and I'm going to take it off just above the leaf as well. Now the only leaves that I need to keep on this are the top ones, so the rest you can very gently pull off. You don't want to tear it so it takes a load of bark. If you can, you just want to take that gently away. Now I know on these very thorny roses that some people actually remove the thorns, so you can do that by placing a thumb on the side of it and pushing gently. I don't know that this makes the slightest bit of difference, other than you don't get spiked as you're pushing it into some soil. I'm going to do one where I've removed them, and the rest I'm not going to worry about. So it's up to you. You can make that decision, or you could try both too. And then the next step is to get rose into the container. If you want to, you can use a rooting powder. I haven't used them for roses before, and I've had plenty of success with roses. And you literally just dip the end in. Doesn't need a huge amount on it. Don't forget to put the lid back on so it doesn't fall over or blow away. So you've got a little bit of rooting powder, and I'm just going to push that in very gently into my pot. This is quite a long pot, and it was quite a long cutting, which hopefully means that an awful lot of that stem is in contact with the compost, which will give it plenty of chance for rooting down the stem and at the bottom of it too. I'm going to carry on looking for suitable pieces to take cuttings from. There's one. So cut just below the leaf, cut just above. This one's going to be a bit shorter because I think I like it there. I'll remove the leaves. This one I'm not going to take the thorns off it. I'm quite happy with it like that. Into the rooting powder. Now I will leave a link in the information below to the rooting powder and also to the roses that I have here. So the one earlier on was Gertrude Jekyll, that's from David Austin Roses, and this beauty is called New Dawn. I'm putting them in round the edge of the pot rather than just stuffed into the middle of it, because the edges of the pot will actually stay warmer than the centre. I don't understand how that works. I don't get the physics of that, but that is what I've been told on many occasions. And I've actually popped in the tops that I cut off as well, because I can't find any more material to take cuttings from, so I'm just going to experiment with this. To me that has to be worth just experimenting with. So I'm now going to give this a water and then pop it in a sheltered site. I'm going to put it just outside the polytunnel out of the very bitter winds that we have, and then we'll have a look again in a few months' time. So I'm just starting to pot up the rose cuttings that I took in May. In fact, my little label says the 31st of May. Here we are, middle of August, so that's 10-11 weeks, something like that. And when I took them out of this pot, I have actually snapped the top of them, which is a bit of a disaster, but I do want to show you A, that I make mistakes, but B, I want to show you how well they've grown. So there were 3 cuttings in here that took. This one even produced a little flower, which is what I snapped off. But usefully, that has told me exactly which rose it was that it's from, and I'm leaving that in there just to remind me for now. But in here, I'm going to handle them very carefully so I don't break them any more than I already did. We can see that there are indeed roots coming through from these cuttings, and I'm really pleased. I am really pleased with how these are doing. So this one, if you'll excuse its damaged top, I'm hoping that hasn't, because it hasn't snapped off completely, I'm hoping that will survive. But it has got some nice roots, so I'm going to pot them individually into pots and grow them on. So I'm resting the plant so that the soil comes to about the level of this rim. I don't want it filled all the way up to the top, because otherwise there's no room for watering it, and the water will just wash the compost out of the top. So in we go. And I'm pushing it down gently. I don't want to pack it in, because that will make it really hard for the roots to work their way into the new compost. But I don't want air pockets in it either. So I'm just doing that quite gently, and also trying to keep the compost, I might have put a bit too much in, there we go. Keep the compost at around the same level as it was before. Now, I don't know how essential it is that you don't bury it deeper. Certainly I plant my roses, when I plant them in the garden, I plant them quite deeply, but for this little one, while it's still developing its root system and growing like mad from those few fragile roots, I'm going to leave the compost at the same level. Here I have got some cuttings of a white climbing rose. These were given to me by my friend Jane, so she took these cuttings using exactly the same method I've just shown you. But I want to show you that, you know, they don't always work. There's one here that is a brown twig, so that hasn't taken. But this, I'm not sure whether this is one or more plants, so I'm just tipping it out of the pot. And you can see here it's dry. I need to water it, but I've got a really good root system here, and I suspect that this is 3 separate cuttings, 3 separate plants. So a bit like I was showing you about dividing plants previously, I'm just going to very gently prise these apart and try and take as much of the roots as I can with it. There we go. So I've got one plant there. I'm going to pot these up separately, and then let's have a look to see whether these are 2 separate plants or actually the same plants. Let's have a look. I think that could be all the same plant. So I'm going to pot it up as though it is, and then if it's two, well, they're in together. So that will go back into one pot, and the other one will go into a different pot. They're also going to get a really good water. Because I really like roses, I take a lot of cuttings, and some of them are successful, a lot of them aren't, but I thought you might like to see two examples of complete success. So the rows over in this corner are the cuttings that I took while I was making a video in January 2018, and that has flowered beautifully. This one, which is a climbing rose, and I've got to go up over an arch here, I took this cutting 4 years ago, almost 4 years to the week, and this has done beautifully. I've actually moved it a couple of times till I found the right spot for it, and it's now scrambling up over the arch and along the fence here. It's getting more and more blustery out here, so I'm taking this lovely Gertrude Jekyll flower inside. It's time for a cup of tea.